let's take a look at some addition and subtraction of fractions. This can sometimes get a little tricky, but let's try an example out here. So 2 over 4 plus, 3 over 5. So we have two fractions there. We're adding them together. One important thing is we can't just add them directly. That's very important. Be very careful about that. If we want to add fractions, think of it like slices of pizza. If you're looking at, pizzas, if you want to share pieces of pizza, you want to make sure that the individual pieces of pizza you're, slicing the same size. It's never fair, like when, you have a piece of pizza and one's sliced way bigger than the other and you're trying to split it up between people. You want to make sure they're the same size. Keep pizza slices same size. So if I were to cut up this second pizza, I'd want to make sure cut it up into eighths as well and keep them the same size. I didn't do a good job there. This piece way down here is much bigger than this piece. And that's the idea behind fractions. So we want the fractions to be the same size, and by the same size, we're looking at the denominator. So need denominators the same. Okay, so that might make sense, but how do we actually do that? How do we get the same denominator? So we need to find a common, what we call find a common denominator. So for that, we're looking for a number, so a number that four and 5 both divide into. And in this case, one way to do it is you could just multiply the two numbers. 4 times 5 equals 20. Since we've multiplied them together, then that means they definitely can divide into that number. And so we will use this as our common denominator. There are other methods as well, but we'll make use of this one. Okay, so we have our common denominator. So the next step is we want to change each of these fractions, so 2 over 3 and 3 over 5, so that they have that common denominator. And remember, fractions, you can adjust a fraction by multiplying both the top and the bottom. We adjust fractions when we're reducing them. So if you have the fraction like 5 over 10, we naturally know that, that's the same as 1 over 2. We're just changing the direction we're doing that in. We're making these fractions bigger, but to something that's still equivalent to the original fraction. And that will allow us to actually be able to add and subtract them. It's like if you're looking at the pizza, if I had originally only cut this first pizza into quarters, well, we can't compare pizza A with pizza B when they have different size slices. We need to cut the second pizza into smaller slices to get it to be the same size. In this particular case with the actual fractions, we're going to increase the size of the denominator, which is kind of like cutting more pieces. Okay, so we want to get the denominators to 20. So how do we do that? Well, what do we need to multiply number 5 by to get to 20? Well, to get to 20, you just need to multiply it by 4. And if we're looking at the fraction, whatever we do to the bottom, do to the top when you're converting it to another fraction. What do we need to do to 4 to get it to 20? Well, you need to multiply it by 5. So multiply both the top and the bottom by that fraction. And then let's do that conversion. So the first fraction, 5 times 2 is 10. And 5 times 4 is 20. That's intentionally set up. And the second fraction, 3 times 4 is 12. and that'll also be over 20. Now that we have them over the same fraction, the same denominator, we can compare them and we can actually add them. And when we add, we only add the numerators. So I'll just write that down. And we can put this onto our sheet now. So 10 plus 12 over 20. Or, well, 10 plus 12 is the same as 22 over 20. And just like how at the start we made our fractions bigger, we unreduce them. If at the end, double check if you can reduce them. And in this case, if you divide both by 2, well, that'll work out to 11 over 10. So just make sure you reduce your answers. And that's, in this case, that's addition. Subtraction is the exact same way, but instead, if you had a minus sign, you just change the sign between the two numbers. But completely identical, you need to have the common denominator. And that's a look at adding and subtracting fractions.